Hey mini enthusiasts, how you doing? I hope you've all had a great week, and in this video we're going to be fitting a bucket seat into Vinny, and we're going to be lowering the steering column as well. So I'm fitting the bucket seat in preparation for the track day, which is the 23rd of July. That's done with London and Surrey Mini Owners Club, and I just wanted, the seats in Vinny are fine, but they're just not great for the track, so I want something that's kind of hugs you a bit closer. And more importantly, I wanted to fit harnesses in the car, so you can't really fit them with a standard driver's seat. You need the bit in the back for the harnesses to go through into the back of the car. So I was going to buy a brand new seat, but the difficult bit is finding a seat which is comfortable, fits the Mini nicely. So I asked my friend Mark if he had any spare seats, really just to try them to begin with. And he did have. He bought a couple of seats for one of his Minis, never fitted them for some reason, so they were sort of sitting in his lockup collecting dust. So I'll stick a before photo here. So as you can see, a little bit dusty, but once I gave them a clean off, a bit of upholstery cleaner, come up really nicely. And as I say, it's all about getting harnesses in the car, so just to make it a little bit safer. And then we're going to fit a steering column lowering bracket as well, because obviously where the seat's lower, the driving position's different, and it just didn't feel right. So that's that. Just a reminder about the P&L Minis giveaway voucher. So there's a $600 voucher up for grabs. Obviously, we'll convert that into whatever currency you need it in. So if you're in the UK, it will be the equivalent of $600, which is about £470. And if you're in Europe, it will be in euros, which is about 530 euros. You don't have to do anything special to enter. There's no catches or anything like that. I'll put a link down in the description. You just got to go over to the page that Cole at Classic Mini DIY has set up. Click on that link. That enters you into the giveaway then, and it's drawn at the end of the month. So I think that's 31st of July. Cole will pick a winner. I think he's doing it live, but we'll pick a winner, and you'll get a voucher which you can spend at P&L Minis, as I say, up to the value of $600, which can get you quite a lot of stuff, to be honest. So that's that. I do apologise at the start of this video because I missed out a bit of filming, and that was the seat before I fitted in the car, so we jumped straight into pretty much when the seat's in the car. So yeah. Sit back, enjoy, and have a great week. Thanks, guys. So I fitted that seat. I'll show you in a moment. The only thing I had to do was swap over the subframes. So there's a subframe that come off the car or off the seat. It's well twisted. I went to put it in and it was like, oh dear, nothing's lining up here. But I don't know whether it's, I wouldn't think that's been dropped. I reckon the last owner, and it wasn't Mark never had them fitted in a car, I reckon was a bit on the fat side. But anyway, it worked out perfectly okay actually, because the subframe on these seats, so this is the seat that come out of Vinny, it's actually an MG ZS seat, but it had custom made subframes on the bottom. It looked like a mini subframe that had been adapted, and then it had been lowered as well. So actually in the car it fits really nicely. It's probably about the widest seat you'll get in a Mini. It's 600mm wide, so it's literally into the door shut there. I don't think you get two side by side. I don't know, maybe you would. You wouldn't get them both at the same position because they'd clash. But on that subframe it fits beautifully. It's a really nice driving position. Quite a comfy seat as well, so I'm well pleased with that. I've just got to get the harnesses fitted in now. So there we go, the seat's in. Quite pleased with it. It's quite easy to mount a Mini seat. There's just the 2 bolts at the front, the rear clips in, and this seat seems to fit really nicely. It fits better than the existing seat. The existing seat was more upright, didn't quite have enough or as much leg room as this, so I'm 6 foot tall. It's never going to be perfect in a Mini, but this is quite a comfortable driving position. That old seat certainly felt or was more upright, and it was slightly further forward. So this feels great. I'm really pleased with that. Gear change reach is fine, but I found the steering column, the steering wheel is too high up. It's too vertical. I can't see the speedo. I could see it before, so this seat is definitely lower down at the back. So it's relatively easy to do. I just need to fit a steering column lowering bracket. I've not fitted one before, because why fit one if you don't need one? And before, when the seat's been more upright in that MG ZS seat, it was thicker as well, and my knees were closer to the steering wheel. So as you notice, when I put my feet down on the pedals here, I've got a good, 3 inches underneath. So I should have plenty of room to bring it down an inch, and hopefully that will give me better visibility of the speedo, and it will be a more comfortable and natural driving position. So I'm really pleased with how this is going. Let's get this steering column bracket fitted. So lowering the steering column is one of the easier jobs to tackle on a Mini. In fact, most people can do it. There are a couple of things to look out for. So I just bought this steering column bracket off eBay. They're all pretty much the same. You can buy heavy duty ones which are much more robust, but they're relatively inexpensive. You can get them all over the place. But you do need to be careful of a couple of things. First thing to note is the bolt that holds the original steering column in place should have a shear bolt on it. If you're lucky, they haven't sheared the nut off, so you can just undo it like a normal bolt. It'll have a normal bolt head on it. If it's been sheared off, which is what they're meant to do, they're shear bolts, it will have a smooth head on it. Then it's quite tricky to get off. Then you have to get sort of a hammer and punch and chisel the bolt undone. But like I say, if you're lucky, and Vinny's already been changed, but if you're lucky, it's still got the bolt head on there that hasn't been sheared. So you have to undo that. And the most important part, and this quite often gets overlooked with people getting a bit over enthusiastic with fitting parts to the car and they want to get it done quickly. When you lower the steering column down, obviously you're changing the angle of the column on the steering rack down at the bottom, and that's connected from the column shaft to the steering rack pinion, which is a splined pinion. And if you can imagine, they will align something like that. So then if you lower the column and leave the rack in place, you end up putting that joint where the column meets the steering rack pinion at an angle, and you'll actually damage the splines, you'll damage the column, and you can damage the rack as well. So the proper way you should do it is undo all 4 of the steering rack nuts on the toe board. If you slacken them all off, that will allow the steering rack to actually twist round on the toe board or on the bulkhead, and then you can twist. So where that's how it would normally be, and then you lower the steering column so it's like that. And what you want to do at the same time is twist the column around, or twist the rack around, so it's back all parallel and all in line again. Like I say, it's often overlooked, but make sure you do it. It's relatively straightforward to do. We're just going to pull the carpets forward, undo the 4 steering rack nuts, which hold the sort of U clamps, which hold the steering rack in place. Lower the column down, fit the new lowering column bracket in place, and then tighten everything back up again, and that should be fine. So guys, just to bring you in for a bit of detail, this is the steering column shear bolt I was talking about, although on Vinny it's not a shear bolt because it's been replaced before. And down the bottom here on the toe board, here and here, those are the 2 nuts which hold the steering rack U joint or U bolt. Let me show you the other side, and there we go, we've got the same on the other side. So as you can see, I just slacken them off, and as I push that, they push through a little bit. When we tighten them back up, you want to do the same amount of turns, top and bottom, just to get them tightened up evenly. So we got that bolt out the column now. That's where we insert our lowering bracket in a moment. And what we want to look for, the rack's loose now. We're looking for the pinch bolt down here. As we pull this down, and just keep an eye out for the wires, because the wires can be quite tight around here. Obviously you're going to lower it down, so that's going to make a difference. As you pull that down, it should come down, and the bottom should, brake pedal's in the way, the bottom should turn freely. You can just see there, that's not applying pressure to the shaft, that's the actual rack turning there. And we can just leave that hanging there for a moment. We'll put the bracket in, and then we're pretty much done, apart from putting it together. So there we go, guys. That took literally 5 minutes. Yeah, it's really straightforward. Just a bit of advice for you, because I'd done it. I'd loosened off the rack bolts and I grabbed hold of the steering wheel. And of course, if you do that, then when you move it, actually you're moving the whole rack, the wheels are not turning, so you need to make sure it's back lined up centrally again, so that when you tighten the rack back up, it all aligns okay. And I would recommend just double checking the pinch bolt down the bottom, the steering column onto the steering rack, just making sure it's tight. Not because you've fiddled around with it now, but they do have a habit of coming loose over time. So I'm really pleased with that. I've actually got the lowering column bracket on the highest setting, and that is spot on. I can see the speedo perfectly. I'll bring you in a moment and show you what it looks like from my perspective, but I can see the speedo perfectly. As I say, it goes down quite a lot more actually, but I don't need it that low. That's absolutely fine for me. It's a comfortable driving position, and I've got perfect line of sight for the speedo. So all we're going to do now is just take it out for a drive and make sure it's all okay. I'm sure it will be. So this is a bit of a weird way to hold the camera, but I'm holding the camera at what would be eye level for me. So this is what I'm seeing, or certainly a good representation of it. It's on sort of super view, so it gives you kind of that really wide peripheral vision as well. But at my eye level, which is where the camera is now, it's up about here, as you can see. Here's my speedo here, and that works really well. I'm so pleased with that, to be honest. So let's go and give it a drive and see what it's like. Right guys, what I've tried to do when we go on the road test is I've tried to position the GoPro at kind of my eye level, so you can see my perspective. I'm looking at it on kind of the viewfinder. It looks pretty close. GoPro's quite close to my head though, so hi guys. Yeah, let's go for a ride, see what it looks like. So there we go. I like the seat, I like the driving position. It certainly feels a bit different now. I'm just waiting on the sort of eye bolts for the harnesses, which should have been here by now. Hopefully they'll turn up tomorrow.